Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. Today's March 30th, 2016. One of the top headlines is a familiar narrative. White police officers have been acquitted of charges of an injustice against a black male, in this case, a young black male. The story out of Minneapolis from November 2015 is that a young man was shot in the head after already being arrested. Today, March 30th, we get the headline that the officers who shot the young man in the head are acquitted of their charges. In the past, we've seen stories such as this. Rodney King stands out in many of our minds. Rodney King beat on March 3rd, 3-3 by the LAPD. The officers acquitted nearly a year later, causing a riot. In the time of Obama, we've gotten many of these stories in the media, not by coincidence. The powers that be, those who control the media, those who control the government, those who control the police, are working overtime to divide people among race, especially white versus black, with stories such as Rodney King, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, and many more. On this video channel, I have covered at least 50 of these news stories, most of which have come in the last 4 years, and I have shown how all of them are coded with the exact same numbers. One of the most important numbers being 33. Think about today's date, March 30th. 3/30. Put it together, 3 plus 30, 33. I talk about the language of gematria. Race war equals 33, as does police, and the police are instrumental in carrying out this race war agenda. It is the Freemasons, the secret society that has been with this nation since its beginning, been in many continents, all continents of the world for hundreds of years. A secret society that believes in divide and conquer and order through chaos. Anyhow, we're going to talk about what is coded into these stories again and again and how it's coded into this Jamar Clark story right here before our eyes. The first thing I want to point out is why this news story is coming out today, March 30th, besides the obvious 3/30. From November 15th until today, March 30th, is a total span of 137 days. 137 is the 33rd prime number. And the powers that be, they often space out their stories and their propaganda and their agenda items by this span of days. This is part of an ongoing pattern that connects to many of these killings and acquittals of the past. If you go through my video channel, you'll see how redundant this is. Also, if you're new here, I teach that when you read mainstream media, pay attention to these emphasized headlines. Execution style, they explain how Jamar Clark died. Execution style has gematria of 62, just like the word Mason, short for Freemason. March 3rd is the 62nd day of the year. Think about that. 3/3, 62. Freemasons obsessed with 33. March 3rd, the date that the LAPD beat Rodney King. LAPD equals 33, just like police. They beat Rodney King on this day. And with regards to Rodney King, in gematria, his name equals 59, a number stamped all over black Americans throughout history. Motown Records came out in 59. Negro, slave, blues all equal 59. Here's another word people often use, cracker. I don't need to elaborate. 59. The joke's big, truth seeker. It's a big Freemason show. Freemasons again. They control the media. They control government. They control the police. They control entertainment industries. They have made the world a stage. And yes, horrible things do happen to black people from white police officers. There's a major, disproportionate amount of people imprisoned that are youthful and black. There's a reason for this. The people of this world are programmed by these Masons who believe in divide and conquer, and they instill hate in all of us from a young age. Look at these police badges with the Freemason, compass, and square all over it. If you're new to my channel, Big G represents 33. There's a form of gematria, Francis Bacon method. Lowercase a through lowercase z are worth 1 through 26. Uppercase A through uppercase Z are worth 27 through 52. Big G is 33 in this method. Freemasons obsessed with 33. Now let's just go through the details of this specific Jamar Clark death. Where it happened, Minneapolis, Minnesota. In gematria, Minneapolis, Minnesota equals 93, the number for propaganda. The other thing it makes me think of, though, in the wake of the death of a young black man, is Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. I'll just show this on the calculator. Malcolm X in gematria equals 93. Martin Luther King Jr. in gematria equals 93. These two men met one day in history. I have a video on this. They met on a date with 93 numerology. They also both died at the age of 39, the reflection of 93. There's more to it than that. I have videos on their deaths. There's many parallels. Just in light of this number, on top of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the death of a young black man, I think about that. Minneapolis also has gematria of 55. The word sacrifice equals 55. 64, the word chaos equals 64. Minneapolis has been used for psychological programming in the mainstream media before. I've lost track of time. I think it was the 2008 election. It might have even been the 2004 election. Just before one of the major political conventions there was an incident where all sorts of people waiting to attend were pepper sprayed and handcuffed by the police. And this news story was viral. A lot of people paid attention to it. It was another type of programming, just reminding people they live in a police state. The police are authority. They'll do what they will. They'll get away with wrongdoing. Just like this story. Executing a young man already arrested in the head and then being acquitted, saying there was nothing wrong with it. I mean, this type of stuff is sick and ongoing. And, for those of you who are new here, I also talk about how a lot of these deaths, these incidents, are staged. Oftentimes, they don't even happen when they are truly reported in the mainstream. It's entirely possible there's no Jamar Clark. Michael Brown, there was never a Michael Brown. Michael Brown was a dummy left in the middle of the street for hours, and a dummy that is now in a museum in Chicago. No joke. Pretty sure there's no Trayvon Martin either. Trayvon Martin buried on March 3rd, 3/3. All of these stories centered around the same numbers. I have videos on all of them. I just want people to understand. Yes, horrible things happen in this world, but most of the stories reported in the mainstream are propaganda just made out of fiction to divide people. But they play on real narratives. Minnesota also has the gematria of 38, like death. 47 as well, a very special number to the Masons and Zionists. We were talking about Rodney King a moment ago. He died at age 47. The date he died on is now the date of the Charlton church shooting. Another hoax by the numbers. I know that no one died in Charleston. That Clementa Pinckney, a major sellout to his people. Notice they say Jamar Clark was 24 years old, 24, the reflection of 42, 42 stamped all over black Americans all throughout history. A lot of people right away will think of Jackie Robinson, first black baseball player in the white major leagues, wore the number 42. The number 42 represents the N-word. February, also the only month with 42 gematria, Black History Month. In prior videos, I've talked about the relationship between 42 and 59. When the whole Ebola thing was going on in Africa, they kept quoting 42 and 59 and all these Ebola stories on these African nations. 42 and 59, part of the numerical joke by the Masonic Zionist jokers who run the show. They say the investigation that acquitted these police officers included 122 Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension reports. 122 stands out right away. Freemason and Francis Bacon gematria equals 122, a number they love to code. 1,370 pages, drop the zero, 137, the 33rd prime. This is what I mean when you read these stories aware of their coding. You start to see through the bullshit. 21 DNA reports, 97 Minneapolis Police Department supplemental reports. The reflection in 97 is 79, a number for murder, which we'll talk more about. And it took him 31 hours to read. 31, the 11th prime, the foundational degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. The police officers acquitted are named Mike Regenberg and also Dustin Schwarzy. Here's what stands out about both of their names. Mike has gematria of 38, like Minnesota, like death. Regenberg has gematria of 106, the number of prophecy, a number that they love to code in these stories. I think it's part of an ongoing man-made prophecy with a eventual outcome that they are leading the people to. I really think that where the head of this agenda is, this racially based shooting agenda, is with the faked death of the 44th president. The word kill equals 44. We'll talk more about 44 in a minute. Mike Regenberg also sums to 144 in simple English gematria. Killer in Jewish gematria equals 144. This is also a number that they commonly code into the police officers' names in these shooting hoaxes, and there might be multiple reasons for this. Notice that sheriff, trooper, and officer all have gematria of 44. So does the word military, and the police are pretty much the domestic military force, here to maintain the order of the land, the Masonic order. 44, the kill number. Police officers, there's often stories of them killing and getting killed in the mainstream media. Anyhow, when you write out 44, it sums to 144, so it might be part of the reason they code 144 into these police officer names so much. I think for these fictional stories where these police officers do these horrible things and then get acquitted, they just create characters so that once these people have played their part, they can escape. Remember the blonde-haired, blue-eyed shooter of Michael Brown who didn't feel bad at all about what he did and came out wearing the shirt with 42 and 59 on it? In light of what I'm teaching about 42 and 59 being coded on black Americans. 59 also the kill number in Jewish gematria. I should have mentioned that. So the name Mike, it's also short for Michael, a name with 33 gematria, just like police. Handful of names with 33 gematria. Another one of those names is Dustin, the name of the other officer supposedly responsible for the shooting. Dustin, a name with 33 gematria. Also 24, like the age of the victim. 24, the reflection of 42. They say his name's Schwarzy. Gematria of 40 and 49. Today has 49 numerology as well. The acquittal date. I didn't see this guy's name in the initial story that I decoded in November. The attorney speaking, saying why the officers got off, is named Mike Freeman. Think about that name. These police officers are free of executing this youth. Mike Freeman, reading the narrative. Mike Freeman equals 55 and 64, identical to Minneapolis. So often the lawyers sync up with the location. Could be all part of the Masonic coding. Learn this language of gematria, go into your local courthouse, and decode the names of the judges on the wall. You'll see how this Freemason network works. If it's like the courthouses around my house, everyone's name sums to 74. Judge equals 47, jury equals 74. Talk more about these numbers as we go. Obey and gavel equal 47, just like judge. Think it's a coincidence? I don't. Here's our picture of Jamar Clark. They got him smiling. These stories are meant to play at your emotions. So anyhow, Jamar Clark in gematria equals 34. The date he was shot on was a date with a life lesson number of 34. His name matches the date. The date he was shot is a sore spot for me. Exactly a year before he was supposedly shot is when my house was burglarized. A date with a life lesson number of 33. Left my home for about 6 hours, came home, everything was destroyed and stolen. Shortly after I had just exposed the shooting hoax in Marysville, Washington, not far from my house. Pretty sure the local police abused their authority and came and wiped out my house real quick. Jamar Clark also sums to 88 like poison and program. These stories, again, about dividing us over race, teaching us to hate one another. That's the hope of the powers that be who put these stories before our eyes. Again, from the date of the shooting to the date of the acquittal, 137 days, the 33rd prime number. This agenda is a federal agenda. It is carried out in all states of the United States. It's really also an international agenda. Our federal government was created by the Masons already in power before the West had been conquered by the European Masons who came over here. Notice that Washington, D.C. equals 137. American meridian, that's the meridian that cuts through Washington, D.C. equals 137. Again, the 33rd prime number, federal equals 33. You could call these stories false flags, purposefully contrived tragedies, propaganda, meant to work people up, meant to divide them, meant to manipulate them, meant them to steer us down the path they want us to go on, a path that is part of building a police state. False flag has that gematria of 33. Just days ago, Minneapolis Police Department put out a public service announcement warning people not to protest. But this is ultimately what they want. They want these incidents. They want these TV narratives so they can say, see, the people, they're wild. We need to spend more money on police. We need to prevent this from happening. Using the police to stir up the mess in the first place and then asking for more funding to be the solution to the problem they created. This is how they do it. This is how the powers that be operate. Order out of chaos, divide and conquer. I can give a personal story real quick. May Day 2012, I think it was. Downtown Seattle, it became the national news story, a peaceful march that turned into a property-destroying march. And I was in that march, and I saw exactly what happened, and I saw how the police and media conspired to make a news story. About 2-3 blocks into the march, a group of men who seemed well-trained, well-organized, all in black, all with their faces covered, moved into the middle of the march. And as the march went past City Banks, downtown Seattle, the men in black would come out and fire wrapped rocks, something hard, and they'd throw them through the windows of the banks, and then they'd run back into the middle of the march, and they'd stay there like a pack of fish. And the police were on bicycle, they were on horse, they were following the march, they were in close proximity. And I noticed, by the time we'd gone past the second, third, fourth bank and broken all these windows at each one, I shouldn't say we, the people in black had done this, I noticed the police were just following and not doing anything. I was thinking, wow, police are just going to let this go on. So anyway, the march was a big square through the city coming back to the starting point, and near where the starting point was Nike Town. And by the time we had marched all this way, got into Nike Town, we must have, as a group, went past 10, 12 banks. Also, other things got hit like Starbucks. But we'd gone past several of these buildings that now had shattered windows and multiple objects thrown through them, and the cops hadn't done anything. But when we got to Nike Town, all of the men in the black, they came out and they had things that looked like police batons. They whipped them out, they became longer sticks, and they all started hitting the Nike Town glass, which was like bulletproof type glass, and the whole glass just started shaking like a wave. And eventually it just shattered. And as soon as it shattered, all the cops on the horses and the bikes, they came in with canisters, gas, It's the first time I'd experienced anything like that. It was like being in a war zone. And the stuff that they released, it just instantly makes you start choking, coughing. It hits you hard. So people, panicked. People started screaming, running. I was with my girlfriend who'd never participated in anything like this before. It was the first time she decided to come out. And she tried to run away real quick, but I grabbed her by the arm and I said, "No, don't run. We'll look more suspicious." I said, "Just walk out of here. We didn't do anything." And we were able to walk away. But what happened after that is we went nearby to Pike's Place Market, downtown Seattle landmark. And right away on the flat screens playing there, you could see that every national news coverage was showing what was going on in Seattle. And I thought, my goodness, this is what it was all about. It was a setup. They had us march through the city. They had these people in the middle with the black who probably were police themselves create all this damage. And then they waited till the very end to make their scene that's now all over the news. The police could have shut it down right away. Right away. The first second that group hit those windows at the bank, there was enough police there to defuse it. But they just let it go on. And they let everyone's windows get broken. But strategic windows, the banks, Starbucks equals 33. Now I just get it all. This is banker tyrant madness. The same people who control the banks, who control these mega corporations, are the same ones who control the media, the same ones who control the police, and manufacture their news to create perception in the masses. The majority of people in public, they don't go out to protests because they think only crazy people are there, and people who are up to no good, and people who should get a job. People always write that to me. For all of you who think that, realize this: I'm harder working than you've ever been in your life. I achieved more by the time I was a teenager than most of you will achieve in your life. I put myself in a situation so that I can fight back because I know what my purpose is in this world, and that's what I work at. All of my critics, you guys are just haters. All you can do is make assumptions, and you're all wrong about all the lies you spread about me. But anyway, people need to wake up. What's on TV is a show, and the show is manufactured for a reason. From the story I just told you, to this news right here, to the thousands of news stories decoded on this video channel and my written blog. Today's date, March 30th, 2016, moving on. Date with interesting numerology, 69, the number at the top of the Masonic arch. 42, like the number for Freemason. The number also coded into many divisive words, including the N-word, which is often stamped on black people. Here, white police officers get off for shooting a young black man in the head who was supposedly already arrested. I mean, it's just insane to say. How could they ever get off? How do you shoot somebody in the head who's already arrested and get off? Whether the story is real or fake, it demands a protest, People need to come out and say, all right, enough's enough. This is sick. And of course, also a date with 33 numerology. Let's go back and look at what I decoded in November. There's a few other important details. Jamar Clark, again, equals 34, like murder. Big Way, 88. On November 24th, 9 days after he was shot, 5 more people were shot, supposedly at a protest that was about getting justice for him. And this was the first time this made national news. The initial Jamar Clark story didn't make news. What made news was the shooting at the protest for him. So what I noticed is from November 15th to November 24th, the day 5 people got shot, is a span of 9 days. And 34 is the 9th Fibonacci number. Fibonacci number is very important in this reporting as well. So 9 days after Jamar Clark, 34, the 9th Fibonacci number, 5 more people get shot. And that has me thinking of 9 and 5, 5 and 9, numbers that get stamped on black Americans. People who were shot were black. They were supposedly Black Lives Matters protesters. I also want you to notice how protest itself has gematria of 113, a number that the Masons and Zionists love to code into their wrongdoing. Mainstream equals 113. Dishonest equals 113. Green screen equals 113. Scottish equals 113. Think about how this year on November 3rd, Donald Trump's protest created a big controversy because of what happened there in Chicago. Scripted news, planned news. I guarantee you it's no coincidence that happened on November 3rd with the protest, especially in Chicago, the Zionist Masonic Mecca, where the majority of these black on white stories come out of. This one's not out of Chicago, but it's out of Minneapolis, not far away. We're getting reports of possibly 3 shot. There's 5 suspects. Somebody's stating there's a group of white supremacists that started shooting in the area. 5 suspects total. What's interesting about white supremacist is it has gematria of 74, the number for Masonic, the number often paired with 33. And when you think of white supremacist, you think of the KKK, the 11th letter. The 11 plus the 11 plus the 11, the 33. Police is 33. Most white sheets were the police of the time. That's why they hid behind the white sheets. Talk about a group of cowards. Anybody who has to hide behind a mask is a coward. That's a fact. If you're not willing to show your face for what you believe in, for what you stand up for, you're a coward, you know? And also, all of these YouTube channels that pretend to be YouTube truth channels, people who attack me who've never shown their face, it's funny that people out there trust these channels over me. Shows you how many people have poor judgment in this society, but the reason they have such poor judgment is because they've been programmed to be idiots in school, by this media, by their government since birth. Anyhow, they shot Black Lives Matters protesters. Black Lives has gematria of 33, like race war. Also 42, like the number stamped on black Americans. Also 51, like conspiracy. Black Lives Matter has gematria of 74. White supremacists shot Black Lives Matter. This Black Lives Matter is controlled opposition, just as the Black Panther Party was, which also equals 74, during the 60s. If you missed my work on the Super Bowl, before it happened, I predicted, look at this, before the game was set, I predicted all of this from understanding this numerical code. I predicted the Broncos would win the Super Bowl in October. I predicted in late November, early December that the Super Bowl would be Broncos over Carolina Panthers. Before the Super Bowl happened, I said Von Miller will be the MVP and there will be a Black Panther tribute. All of those things happened. The world is scripted, the world is a stage. It's executed this way by these same repetitive numbers. I can't say it enough. For this police spokesman, John Elder, here's what stands out about this. Police chief equals 91. John Elder equals 91. 46 and 64 are also numbers often stamped on the police officers reporting. If you go back and watch the 100 videos I've done decoding police spokesmen, and it's probably way more than 100, in so many of them, it's 4664. And again, the date Jamar Clark was shot, a date with a life lesson number of 34. Jamar Clark equals 34. Murder equals 34. Supposedly executed by being shot in the head. So, you know, if you think this is all a coincidence, I really can't help you. And nobody probably can. I have hundreds of videos documenting this same pattern. All of these contrived news stories contrived the same way. And November 15th, it might be a really important day to these Masons. Like I said, it's the day my house got ripped off. 2014, a year earlier. Major loss for me that day. And exactly 1 week earlier, on November 8th, 2014, also a date with 33 numerology, I got driven off the road by a black SUV that then harassed me and taunted me in front of the road, braking in front of me, making me stop. I got a story on this. But this is how these Masons operate. By the numbers, total arrogance, totally despicable, you know. And why do they do it? Because they know. They know no one's going to stand up to them. They know no one's going to come out to any protest. They know no one's going to say anything. Everyone's too focused on themselves. Got to go to school. Got to go to work. Got to pay the bills. That's what I got to do right after I get off here. I got to pay the bills too. But that's what has to change, you know? Until we as a people change and bring this to an end, this is the pattern that will persist. All right, until next time, Truth.